What if the fate of two worlds rested not in the hands of generals or kings, but in the bond between an 8-year-old girl and a young dragon who was never meant to be hers? Alarms scream in the night. Shadows slip from a colder sky, and ancient trials rise to challenge a friendship that could change history forever. Will love and trust be enough to stand against powers older than time itself? If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The Windhaven Xenobiology Preserve lies under a cold winter sky, and a thin alarm hums along the fence like a needle on glass. The sound is small but steady, a whisper that could mean nothing or everything. Inside a quiet bedroom, Nova Marin sleeps with her cheek on the same pillow as a young dragon named Emberfawn. The room smells like paper books and cinnamon soap. One scaled wing rests over the child's shoulder. A soft shield. The tail is looped around her ankle, a gentle promise that says, "Stay close." A door eases open. Dr. Nadia Marin speaks in a careful whisper any parent would know. She says, "Good morning, little star." And she says the ridge sensors look odd. She tries not to laugh, because the picture is sweet and ridiculous. The child and the dragon have both drooled on the same pillow, and both pretend sleep is stronger than the alarm. A voiceover pauses to let the listener feel the room. This is an inspiring story, a human and dragon bond, a sci-fi story told with the warmth of real life. Emberfawn opens one amber eye, decides the morning can wait, and pulls Nova closer with his wing. Nova mumbles for 5 more minutes. The alarm keeps its thin line of sound. Nadia adds a final nudge. Last time she let them snooze, breakfast ran out. That changes everything. Emberfawn sits up at once, alert in the way only a friend who loves food can be. Nova pushes hair out of her face. It points in every direction. Emberfawn tries to help by smoothing it with his tongue. It does not help. Nova laughs and tells him to stop. The narrator explains that Windhaven has logged dozens of sounds from the young dragon. Nova understands even more. She knows the soft note that means content. She knows the tiny chirp that means hungry. She knows the low rumble that means watch. This is human and dragon communication in simple language. It is a family moment. And it is also the beginning of a larger mystery. The alarm outside has not stopped. Downstairs, the kitchen smells like griddle cakes and crisp synth bacon. Captain Rohan Marin reviews a wall of camera feeds. He kisses Nova's hair, nods at Emberfawn, and says, "Good morning, co-pilot." Emberfawn replies, "Good morning, Captain Father," very formal and very proud. Rohan points to a clip. 3 blips cross the North Ridge in formation, then vanish. No transponders, no IDs. They move like something alive. Nadia's face tightens. She has seen strange data before, but this is different in a way she cannot name. The voiceover slows to show the bond. Nova and Emberfawn share a look. For weeks, they have both felt a faint humming in dream space, like a choir warming up on the far side of a closed door. Nova has not found words for it. How does a child tell a scientist mother and a soldier father that her dragon hears feelings from the sky? Yet the feeling is here, in the kitchen now, under the smell of pancakes, under the shape of an ordinary morning. The director of Windhaven arrives on the screen of the wall display. Professor Darian Quill reports sensor echoes he cannot label. He suggests caution. Rohan agrees. Nova asks a simple question. Can we train in the North Meadow after breakfast if we stay inside the inner posts? The room hesitates. The audience hears a parent pause. The balance between safety and trust. Emberfawn has proven again and again that he protects Nova in ways no camera can. Once, when she fell off her bike, he carried her home and called the clinic with his nose. Once, when a delivery drone lost its route, he knocked it from the air and sat on it until help arrived. Rohan sets terms. Tracker, on. Constant check-ins. First hint of trouble, head back. Nova salutes, all joy. Emberfawn tries to copy the salute with a wing and nearly tips the orange juice. Laughter clears the kitchen air. This is a warm family, and this is also a place where science and security live side by side. The voiceover gently adds the key phrase for search. An inspiring sci-fi story about a child and a dragon, about family, courage, and trust. After breakfast, Nova pulls on outdoor layers. Emberfawn faces the mirror and practices his vanishing trick. He flickers at the edges, like a postcard that forgot to print the corners. Nova tells him he is getting better. He says it is like trying to hold breath and sneeze at the same time. They step outside. The path crunches under boots and claws. Their breath draws small clouds. The preserve holds habitats shaped for future residents. For now, Emberfawn is the only permanent dragon here, and Nova is his chosen person. As they cross toward the North Meadow, Emberfawn keeps looking up. His pupils narrow and widen, listening with his eyes. Nova asks what he hears. He says, not words, only a tune underwater. The narrator offers a clear sentence for the ear. This is a bond deeper than training. It is friendship made visible. It is empathy that reads the weather of another heart. The meadow is a shallow bowl, ringed with sensor posts and winter trees. Nova sets a tablet to record, because Windhaven collects progress footage for study. Emberfawn stretches, wings opening to a careful 6-foot span. He hovers. The downdraft lifts snow dust and blows Nova's hair back. She laughs. It is an ordinary practice. 3 shapes stitch themselves out of the sky above them. They are sleek, dark, and silent. They are not drones. They are not friendly. The first lands without sound, like a thought that has already decided something important. Emberfawn drops to the ground and steps in front of Nova. His wings open in a firm arc. A low sound rises from his chest, new and serious. The narrator holds a breath with the listener. The alarm from the fence, the humming dreams, the morning talk of blips, everything has led here. The North Meadow of Windhaven lay still under a pale winter sun. Snow covered the ground in smooth blankets, broken only by the black posts of the sensor grid. Nova Marin held her recording tablet steady, watching Emberfawn flap his wings in practice. The young dragon hovered a few feet above the ground, his scales shimmering green and silver, his eyes bright with effort. Nova called out encouragement, her voice cheerful, unaware that the morning was about to change forever. The air shimmered above them. 3 shapes appeared out of nothing, as if cut from the sky itself. They were dragons, but not like Emberfawn. Their scales were dark, almost black, and seemed to swallow light. Slim harnesses clung to their bodies, blinking with tiny lights. The largest of them landed 20 paces away without a sound. The earth did not shake, the snow did not scatter. It was as if the meadow had accepted them quietly, and that silence was more frightening than any roar. Emberfawn dropped to the ground at once. He placed himself between Nova and the strangers. His wings spread wide, forming a shield. A low growl rose from its chest, a sound Nova had never heard before. It was deep, steady, and dangerous. Her heart pounded as the lead dragon fixed cold, silver eyes on Emberfawn and spoke in a clear voice. "Young one," the stranger said, "you were not easy to find." Nova felt her throat tighten, but she forced herself to stand tall. "This is private land," she said, her voice steady. "You're not allowed here." Her words echoed in the empty field, but the silver-eyed dragon only tilted his head as though amused. "A human child," the stranger continued. "Rumors spoke of such a bond. I doubted it was true, but here you are." His gaze shifted back to Emberfawn. "I am Vorith, envoy of the High Conclave. We have come to reclaim what was misplaced." Emberfawn's growl grew louder. "Not misplaced," he said firmly. "Sent away because I was different." The dragon called Vorith blinked slowly. His tone changed. "You speak their tongue so early. That is troubling. Reintegration will not be simple." Nova pressed her hand to her bracelet, pressing the emergency beacon. She kept the other hand on Emberfawn's warm side, feeling the tension in his body. She whispered softly, "We'll be okay." Then she raised her voice. "You can't take him. He lives here now. He belongs here." The second stranger stepped forward. This one was smaller, with scales that shifted from black to violet, like oil on water. "Human laws do not bind us," it said. "The young belongs with his kind." Emberfawn's chest burned with faint heat. His glow spread under his scales, faint but fierce. "I belong with Nova," he roared. "She is my family." The air grew sharp. Nova stood tall, even as fear knotted in her stomach. "He is not a thing you can just take," she said. "He is my best friend. We are together." Before the moment could break, help arrived. From the southern sky came Mistral, one of the preserve's elder partner dragons. His wings spread wide, stars shimmering across his dark scales. 5 more followed him, each landing with authority. Behind them ran Professor Darian Quill, his scarf trailing in the cold air, and a squad of security led by Captain Rohan Marin. Weapons were ready, but no one moved yet. Mistral's voice was calm, but strong. "Envoy Vorith, you cross borders without respect. This is not the Conclave's ground." Vorith's silver eyes narrowed. "Yet the Conclave seeks what is theirs. The young was meant for our breeding halls, not for human company." Professor Quill lifted his voice, the sound sharp in the cold air. "This preserve is under Earth law. Emberfawn chose Nova, and that choice matters. You cannot erase it with old claims." Nova saw Vorith's lip curl, almost like a sneer. "You have 7 Earth days," he said at last. "The High Conclave will decide. If their judgment is against you, we will take what is ours. If in your favor, then the child may keep her pet." Emberfawn stepped forward, his voice clear. "Not pet, partner." The word hung in the air, louder than the alarm that still hummed along the preserve's edge. Mistral shifted his wings, the partner dragons humming low in agreement. Vorith's silver eyes glinted, but he said nothing more. The three strangers shimmered, their outlines dissolving. In seconds, they vanished into the sky as if they had never been there at all. The meadow fell silent. Nova's breath came quick, her pulse loud in her ears. Emberfawn pressed close to her, his wing folding protectively around her shoulders. Mistral lowered his head. "They will return," he said. "When they do, proof will be demanded." Professor Quill adjusted his glasses with hands that shook in the cold. "There is a way," he said. "Old dragon law. 3 measures of the bond. Trust, reach, and accord. If a bond proves sacred, even the conclave cannot break it." Nadia Marin arrived then, her face pale, but her voice steady. She wrapped Nova in her arms, then touched Emberfawn's scales gently. "We'll do this together," she said. "We'll prepare." The meeting room at Windhaven filled with plans. Mistral and the partner dragons sang fragments of old songs that carried laws older than any human record. Professor Quill wrote them down, shaping trials that could be adapted for a child and her dragon. The first would test trust, the second would test the reach of their bond, and the third would test accord, the ability to solve together what neither could solve alone. Nova sat on the floor with Emberfawn, leaning against his warm side. He passed her a pencil with his tail. She passed him a grape from her lunch. Small gestures, simple and ordinary, yet stronger than any law the conclave believed it held. The sanctuary arena stood silent under a gray morning sky. High walls of steel and glass curved around the circle, ready to hold whatever came. In the stands, scientists, guards, and dragons watched with tense eyes. Nova Marin stood at the center with Emberfawn by her side. The young dragon's scales shimmered faintly, his chest rising and falling with nervous breaths. Above them, the shadow of High Counselor Celestara stretched wide, her wings glowing white. Today would decide everything. Another day. Today the bond between a child and a dragon would be tested in 3 ancient trials. The first trial was trust. Celestara's voice filled the arena, calm but heavy. Nova would be blindfolded. Emberfawn must guide her through a twisting maze, using only their bond and his voice. The walls rose out of the floor, stone panels shifting into place, until the maze towered around them. Nova tied the blindfold over her eyes. Darkness pressed close. She whispered, "I'm ready." Emberfawn's voice answered, steady but low, "Trust me, I see through you." She stepped forward, hands brushing cold walls, moving where he told her. Their steps echoed in the narrow passages. "Turn left. Take 3 steps. Careful. Step down." Each word came from Emberfawn, and Nova followed, even when doubt stirred. Once she stumbled against a stone ledge, but his calm voice pulled her back. She remembered every laugh they had shared, every night he had curled around her bed. Those memories gave her courage. Pause. After long minutes, a cool breeze brushed her face. Emberfawn called out, "One more step." She pulled off the blindfold and saw the open exit. They had done it. Celestera's voice rang clear. The trial of trust is past. But there was no time to rest. The second trial began at once. This was the trial of strength, not in muscle, but in bond. Nova and Emberfawn were placed in glowing circles, 30 feet apart. Barriers rose between them, tall and shimmering with energy. Nova felt the connection weaken, like static over a radio. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I'm here." Emberfawn's voice reached her, faint but real. Always. The circles slid farther apart. 40 feet. 50. More walls fell into place, blocking sight. Nova's chest tightened. She could barely feel him. Fear pushed at her. Then she thought of the first day they met, when she offered her juice box and he curled in her lap. She thought of his awkward flights, his silly morning songs, his warmth on cold nights. The bond flared strong again, and she felt his joy flood into her. Emberfawn was doing the same, drawing on every memory they shared. 60 feet. 70. The connection strained, but held. When the distance reached 100 feet, Celestera's eyes widened. Most adult pairs could not manage such a span, yet the child and the young dragon stood steady, their bond bright as flame. The barriers lowered, and Emberfawn ran to her, pressing his forehead against hers. Celestera declared, "The trial of strength is past." The third and final test was unity. The arena floor opened to reveal a vast crystal puzzle, a living structure of light and shifting symbols. Human logic alone could not solve it, nor dragon instinct alone. They had to work together, in harmony. Nova placed her hands on one side, while Emberfawn set his claws on the other. At first, their movements clashed. The patterns collapsed into broken shapes. Time slipped by. Whispers spread through the watching crowd. Nova stowed, breathing hard. "We're trying to solve it like two people," she said softly. "But we're not two. We're one." Emberfawn's eyes glowed. "Then we move as one." They closed their eyes, reaching into the bond. Nova felt his vision, his colors, his rhythm. Emberfawn felt her thoughts, her patterns, her hope. Together, they pressed forward, sliding shapes and bending light in perfect unison. Slowly, the chaos became order. Glowing lines aligned into constellations. The crystal pulsed like a heart. Then, with a sound like a chime carried on wind, the puzzle locked into place. A sphere of pure light rose into the air, hovering between them. It pulsed once, twice, like a shared heartbeat. Then it dissolved into sparks that rained gently over their heads. Celestera stepped forward, her great wings folding. Her voice carried across the arena, solemn yet warm. In 10,000 years, no interspecies pair has completed the three trials. But strength and unity are real beyond doubt. The bond is sacred. None shall break it. The stands erupted with sound. The sanctuary dragons roared their approval, their voices shaking the glass walls. Humans cheered and clapped. some with tears running down their faces. Nova threw her arms around Emberfawn's neck, and he wrapped his wings around her. "We did it," she whispered, her voice breaking with joy. "Always together," Emberfawn replied. The High Counselor lowered her gaze to the pair. "This bond is rare, and it carries a heavy duty. You are no longer only child and dragon. You are proof that our kinds can grow stronger together. In time, you will serve as bridge and as light." Nova nodded, though she could barely understand the weight of those words. What she did know was simple. Emberfawn was hers, and she was his, and no one would take that away. As the arena emptied, Professor Quill whispered to Nadia and Rohan Marin, "This changes everything. Research, diplomacy, stuff. The very future of dragon and humankind." But for Nova and Emberfawn, the future could wait. They left the arena side by side, tired but full of fire. They had faced the 3 trials, and in their shared heartbeat, they had proven what love and courage could do. The trials were over, but the world of Windhaven did not return to silence. Instead, the air seemed sharper, cleaner, as though the arena itself had breathed a sigh of relief. Nova Marin walked slowly beside Emberfawn, her hand resting against the smooth scales of his shoulder. The young dragon leaned close, his wing brushing her arm, as if to remind both of them that they were still together. Cheers still echoed in the distance, but Nova only heard the steady rhythm of Emberfawn's heartbeat, strong and calm. Dr. Nadia Marin and Captain Rohan Marin rushed to their daughter, their arms wrapped around Nova, and then even Emberfawn was pulled into the embrace, his golden eyes blinking in surprise before softening into joy. The family stood in a circle of warmth, while the High Counselor Celestera watched from above. Her voice carried, even when quiet. "You have changed more than you know," she said. "Your bond has shown what is possible when trust defeats fear." The days that followed were unlike anything Windhaven had known before. Scientists worked late into the night, filling screens with streams of data about Nova and Emberfawn's shared connection. Every detail of the trials was studied. Every heartbeat, every hesitation, every surge of strength was recorded. Professor Quill declared that history had shifted in those 3 hours. "We are no longer asking if humans and dragons can live together," he said, "but what we can build together from this dawn." The Conclave's envoys did not leave. Silvery-eyed Vorith and his companions stayed at the sanctuary, bound by Celestera's decree. At first, they moved with cold stares and stiff wings. Yet, over time, even they began to ask questions. Why did Nova read to Emberfawn at night? Why did he follow her through simple human routines? Why did he choose chores when no one commanded him? Nova answered simply, "Because family is not about orders, it is about care." Emberfawn added, "Because I want to." The words struck harder than any argument. Not all was easy. The Conclave had given 7 days to decide, and whispers carried on the wind about other councils far away. Some dragons still called Emberfawn corrupted. Some humans worried what it meant for their safety. Yet each morning, Nova woke to find Emberfawn curled beside her, and each night he hummed her to sleep. Their bond remained steady. The louder the doubts, the stronger their heartbeats sounded when together. A week after the trials, the sanctuary hosted a gathering. Human families, partner dragons, soldiers, and scientists filled the great hall. Celestara stood at the center, her white scales reflecting the light like a second sun. She spoke with calm power. "You have witnessed the 3 trials. You have seen the bond proven sacred. This child and this dragon have shown that trust, strength, and unity are not weakness, but foundation. The conclave cannot deny this. The wider dawn begins here." Roars of approval shook the hall. Some were dragon roars, deep and fierce. Others were human cheers, quick and bright. Nova squeezed Emberfawn's paw, her eyes shining. "Does that mean we won?" she whispered. Emberfawn bent his head close. "It means we are free. And it means we have work to do." The narrator's voice slowed to show the change. Life at Windhaven grew busier. Emberfawn was no longer just a sanctuary resident. He became a symbol, a living answer to a question older than history. Nova became his partner in every sense. She guided him through human puzzles, and he guided her through dragon songs. Together, they taught classes to visiting researchers. Together, they trained in the meadows, preparing for the day they might serve as ambassadors between species. One cold evening, silvery-eyed Vorith stood watching from the edge of the training field. His face, usually carved from stone, seemed softer. Nova approached, Emberfawn at her side. "Still think he should go back with you?" she asked. Vorith's silver eyes flicked to Emberfawn, then to Nova. "I think the Conclave has much to learn," he admitted at last. Emberfawn let out a quiet snort that might have been amusement. Nova only smiled. The wider dawn was not only for councils and scholars. Children came to Windhaven, eager to meet Emberfawn. Some were shy, hiding behind their parents, until he lowered his head and chirped a greeting. Others climbed on his back, giggling as his wings lifted in careful arcs. Nova walked beside him always, reminding everyone that this was not a pet to be touched, but a partner to be respected. The lesson spread faster than any lecture. Nights at Windhaven were filled with quiet woe. Nova and Emberfawn often lay awake, staring at the stars. Sometimes Nova felt the wider network of dragon minds, a distant hum across the galaxy. Emberfawn explained it was like standing at the edge of an ocean, hearing waves crash miles away. One night, Nova asked, "Do you think others like us will happen? Other bonds like ours?" Emberfawn's answer came without pause. "Yes, because we showed it can." The voiceover closes this chapter with clarity. The trials had been a test of survival, but what followed was a test of vision. Nova and Emberfawn were no longer just child and dragon. They were bridge, proof, and promise. Together they had faced the High Conclave, and together they had won the right to choose their future. The dawn rising over Windhaven was not only brighter, it was wider, reaching across worlds. And at the heart of it, steady and sure, beat the joined rhythm of a girl and her dragon, a shared heartbeat that would echo into tomorrow.